Hello, good morning, good afternoon. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for being here with us. We have got the most special treat for you today. We are going to do a micro webinar event, but not only that, I would consider her to be a thought industry leader in terms of skills, skill-based organization, AI, learning, technology. Sandra is with us, who is the Chief Learning Scientist at EPAM, and we are going to talk all things that are plaguing so many organizations today. We're going to cover, I think it's at least 7 subjects, Sandra, in 5 minutes or less, goodness willing for both of us. This is going to be a hands-on practice of our succinctness and communication skills. But before we do that, please let us know where you're calling in from in the messages section. We are so glad that you are here. Thank you for making 30 minutes for us. And while you are doing that, Sandra, would you like to introduce yourself?
I'll do it real quick. I'm
Okay.
working on it. I've been practicing in the mirror. So Dr. Sandra Loughlin, the most important thing to know about me is that I work for a company that has been on the skills journey for 30 years. That is 3 decades. I have been talking a lot about what it means to work in an actual, like, real live organization that lives and breathes skills and tasks and AI and all the things that we've been talking about. But it's interesting, like I'm a person in a technology organization. And so I'm going to say like things that make it sound like I'm a technology expert, but I'm actually not. I'm a learning scientist, and I care most about how people learn and how to get them to do that in organizations.
Oh my gosh, I love that. And the fact that you have 30 years at an organization under your belt, and because of your skills and expertise are coming at it from that behavioral scientific aspect, I think that brings together such a really beautiful thing. So lots of amazing learnings today. I think we should get right into it. What do you think? We only have so
I love
much
it.
time. Let's go.
Yes, go.
Okay. All right. I am setting a timer to hold ourselves accountable. Accountability is important inside of this. So 5 minutes every
Okay.
time. Here we go. Okay. I'm going to start the first one. Let's do this. All right. Skill-based organization is where we are going to start.
Yeah.
So many people are talking about this, but the truth is, I know from talking to lots of folks, I know you are also well connected. The truth is, a lot of people don't know how to do this or where to start, but we do know that skills are the bedrock of that, and making skill-based decisions instead of things like degrees or maybe past job titles are things that we're moving away from when looking at people as a collection of skills. What are your thoughts? Let's get to the bottom of the SBO.
So let's start by saying that SBO is a data problem. It's just data. We're just trying to collect data on people, on what important things about them, so that we can optimize their employee experience. We can optimize the business through that. So all this talk about SBO is so funny because no one talks about data, and that is the foundation of it. So when we're talking about what needs to be captured around people, skills is one of the most important things to capture, but it's not the only one. There's a bunch of other things that we need to understand about people. Where are they? What is their, what context have they worked in? What industry expertise do they have? What do they like to do? What are they working on? Like, there's so many different things to understand about people. So this whole skills-based organization is just a subset of collecting and using data on people to drive the business. And I'll also say, there's a lot of things that companies get wrong about the SBO. But the other thing that I would say is really the biggest gap that I see is that we keep talking about skills and people like they're the focus, but they're not. Really, skills and people are very, very important. But to me, that comes second to defining the work to be done and the tasks required to get the business, going. So at EPAM, and what I always say out into the world, right, is like, start with understanding your business, the tasks of your business. Then you can figure out what skills are required to do those tasks. Then you figure out who has them. And then the whole work of HR is just closing the gap between what you need and what you have.
Oh, I love that. That was so simple and succinct. And because we still have 2 minutes and 40 seconds left, I'm going to ask you a follow-up. You said a lot of organizations get things wrong about the SBO. Do you want to give me maybe 1 or 2 examples of big things that they're getting wrong?
Yes. So I think not talking about data is one.
Okay.
The tasks is 2. The third thing is that this is not an HR problem. Like, I don't know how to say this more like plainly and lovingly, but this is not an HR problem. leveraging and using data of any type, including around people, is a business tactic to solve business problems, right? The problems can be agility. The problems can be harnessing and responding to AI. The problems can be moving into new markets. The problems can be like developing new services. But like the whole idea of skills is just using data to understand the people so that you can align people better to your business strategy through hiring, through internal mobility, through upskilling, and a bunch of other things. And I guess a subset of that, which is very important to say, I think, is that AI and skills are two sides of one coin. Like AI comes in, what AI does is like currently it's taking work from people, which means that because it's taking work from people, people are implicated, which means that the whole skills thing is very, very helpful in using data again to now get people to work in new ways with AI, help them develop new skills, help them move into new roles as those roles are changing and as AI is coming in and taking new tasks away. So those are the ones that always come to mind. How was that? 2
I love
minutes?
it. I think perfect. Yes, we have 58 seconds left, if you can believe it. But I will switch on to the next theme here. But I think you said something really important. I think as organizations, as leaders, we often get caught up in the business, in the process, and some of those things, and we forget that the people are actually the business. Without so many of these human elements and people to do it, we won't have the business. And that means investing in them. That means investing in their skills. And to your point, not only helping them develop, but also give them longevity, give them process, give them all the things that they need. And that starts with, improving their skills. And of course, that's centered in training. And what you said, I just want to frame it and put it on my wall, is that training and skills are a business problem, not just an HR problem, because ding, 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 sister. We believe it too. And I think it's something that is often overlooked. I can't tell you how many times I've heard, oh, that sounds like training. Oh, that sounds like learning. Pass that over to HR, when really the business leaders need to be owning that as well.
Yes. And I would just say, like, I think a big part of that is our fault too. Because when we talk about learning, we talk about it in terms of learning paths and learning outcomes no one cares about how you get there. The goal is that you get people to constantly align their skills to what the business needs them to know and be able to do. And if our focus is on delivering as opposed to showing what people's skills are, like what they have and what they don't have, and then showing how we've helped them close the gap, then we're not doing our job and we're never going to get to the table, because the table is where shit gets done. And training and learning paths is not the kind of stuff that moves the needle for a business.
Love it. Okay, next subject. We're on to the next one. Okay, AI. I want to roll my eyes, but it is so important that we really get this right. However, it's a really hard thing. It is so broad. It is changing. I cannot go 5 seconds without saying something to do with AI. There's a lot of change in that industry. Keeping up is hard. This is one of those things that you cannot go into blindly without a strategy, yet we see a lot of organizations trying to do so, finding ways to bring it in, finding ways to educate people on it. What is one piece of advice for folks to keep on it, or how they should be investing and thinking about AI from a training perspective?
From a training perspective, not from a business perspective. Okay. From a training perspective. So, all right. AI is going to do a number of things. One, L&D has been traditionally very focused on building content, delivering content, managing content. AI is going to not take all of that away, but it's going to significantly streamline the human part of that to be more kind of like input, feedback, guidance. So to me, frankly, the AI aspect of training is not even all that interesting. The AI aspect of learning is very, very interesting, right? So we need, as learning leaders, to shift our understanding from talking about training to talk about how do you know if someone's learned something? There's an AI use case for you. And then how do you get them to learn that thing? Like formal training courses is one sliver of ways that people learn effectively in an organization. There are others, and AI is implicated in a lot of those things. So having an AI coach or having coaching, human or AI, asking questions, doing investigations, just researching. We've done with Google. Well, now we're going to do that more with AI. Having practice and feedback, right? AI can give you fantastic experiential situations that mimic real world environments where you actually are kind of trying out your skills and learning from them, learning from feedback because it's working or not working, right? There are so many ways that AI is going to impact learning within organizations. How effectively it helps us to build and ship content is frankly like the least interesting thing to me.
Mm. Oh, I totally agree. And I think you said it so well. My belief, and I think where we're moving, is that if you can learn anything through AI or you can consume content or information at the click of a button, at the touch of your fingertips, it actually makes for organizations and for leaders that performance based element, right? That you said it really well, the practice, the experiential learning element of growth ever more important because we don't actually know. The LMS content is a really important piece of the journey, but we don't actually know what people are capable coming out of that. And AI just exacerbates that problem. It makes performance, behavior, and skill application ever more important, I think, inside of that. So I
Yeah,
love what you
and it
said.
also helps with it too, right? You could in one of the things to becoming an expert is understanding all the different contexts around a piece of knowledge. So like, what are some anti-patterns for that thing? What are some related
Mhm.
subjects? Where can I see this in my job? What are some typical questions? What goes wrong? Like if you can ask AI all of those questions around something that you're learning, and you will become better on you will be a more of an expert because you have actually leveraged AI to do that. And you couldn't otherwise do that without expending someone's expensive time to answer all of your questions, which you would never ask because you'd be too embarrassed. So like AI is a paradigm shift for learning within organizations, but it's not in the way that most people think.
I love that. Okay, so let's blow that out because started talking about AI inside of training. But what about AI generally? What are some things that, maybe a tip that you would give somebody to keep up with it?
Learn that there are three kinds of AI. Let's start right there. There's three
Okay.
kinds of AI, of Gen AI, and people don't understand the difference between them. The first one is assistive AI. That's Chat GPT, right? That's where you're asking questions, you're saying, hey, help me with this paragraph. Like it's assisting you, you're prompting it, it's giving you feedback. Very valuable, not actually where a lot of the impact is going to come. The impact's going to come from the second two. And I'll go to the last one. The most complex one is called an agentic workflow, where
Yes.
basically you're going to take really complex workflows that a bunch of different people do across different silos and orgs today. And AI can do the majority of it. It'll pause sometimes to check in with humans, but
Mhm.
it's going in often like doing jobs. And then in the middle, you have AI agents. And AI agents are kind of a hybrid where they are doing very specific things, and they're checking back with you. But it's like instead of having, from people perspective, instead of having like 20 people that are off doing things, that's the workflow, you have one agent that's talking to you and showing you stuff and giving you feedback. So I really recommend that people, leaders, go learn about three different kinds of AI: assistive,
Okay.
agentic, and agentic workflows. And start asking assistive AI, how does this relate to learning? How will this change learning within organizations? Like help you contextualize those three kinds of AI so that it makes sense for you and what you do every day.
My gosh, I love that. I love the way that you broke it down simply into the three too, and kind of the different places inside of where they could fit. I think let's continue this train a little bit around because you talked about how workflow is bringing people together. And I think we started this conversation talking about learning and being a business problem. But a couple folks have commented in the chat. So let's pivot just a little bit to try to cover it. That alignment is really hard to do, right? We have been so long, whether it be skill-based organization, whether it be training, whether it be IT, whomever, that these things are an HR problem. How can we help bring those two orgs together? What are some of your recommendations around making business leaders feel responsible, take accountability for skill sets, for growing their people?
Okay, I'm going to say maybe hard things. Like
Okay.
if the business doesn't care, right, then why are we doing this for them? Like I tell my L&D, I'm externally and internally facing, but we often have the problem at EPAM too, where the business is asking for something, but they won't send SMEs to build the content. They're like, go off and build this thing, but we don't care enough to actually like buy in, support that, and help them make it great. In this case, I go to the business and I say, no, I'm not doing this thing. Like, why? Like, I can't do it alone, so I'm not doing it. I mean, you have to be like okay with that in your organization. But like, I think that we say, how high should I jump too often
Mm,
instead of
mm,
pushing back to the business and saying like, why do you need this? Tell me more. I have limited resources and time. Like, prove to me that you need
mm,
this and show me that you're going to be a good partner to do it. In terms of broad skills, right? So I think this shift is going to be happening for organizations, but it's not quite there yet. Where you're going to have a lot more transparency within the business on what skills people have and don't have. And there's
mhm,
going to be a lot of urgency around closing those skills gaps because A, you can see them now. And
okay,
B, a lot of this is going to transpire because AI natives are going to come into every industry, into whatever company you guys work in today. It's going to be an
mhm,
AI native version of that company that's going to be better, cheaper, and faster. And
okay,
because of the way that it's designed, right? Which means that the existing enterprises leaders are going to be freaking out and trying to figure out how to compete. Skills is going to be, and what people know and can do in the business is going to be one of the most important differentiators that
mm,
exists. And the difference between, today and 3 or 4 years ago is that
okay,
when you had missing skills gaps, you could hire for them pretty much.
uh-huh,
In a world of AI where it's hitting us all at once and super fast, there is nowhere to go to
mhm,
get the skills that the business needs, generally speaking, other than developing it. And so this is going to be a huge focus now on learning, but it can't be training. It has to be demonstrating that people have new skills they didn't have before, which means that we have to rethink how we get them there and show the delta.
oh my gosh, I love that. We have to build, not buy skill
Yes.
sets and people in our organizations. I read something the other day that there are more open cybersecurity jobs than there are people to fill them. We literally don't have enough people with the skill sets needed or the organizations asking for them to fill it. So the truth is what you're saying is that there's no other option because they don't exist. The people don't exist. We're
They
going to
don't.
have to build them ourselves inside of that, which is great. Okay, oof, we're crushing this thing. 34 seconds left on this one. All right, next topic. Start our 5 minutes over. Let's move on to task intelligence because I know that this is something that you are uniquely invested in and have done really well for a long time. Share with us a little bit about task intelligence at EPAM and maybe walk us a little bit through what that looks like, how you're really optimizing for how you started, like jobs to be done instead of maybe some of those specific roles or titles inside of that.
So it all started for EPAM. So let me step back. So EPAM is a professional services company. Our entire business model is like selling people's time, which means that we're essentially matching skills to client projects. And so 30 years ago, plus when the company was founded with a bunch of data scientists and software engineers who think like this, they were like, well, we just can't like willy-nilly like assign people to work. We need data. And so they started out by defining what is the work to be done. This was the tasks. And then they said, okay, what skills are required to do those tasks? Okay, who has those skills? Now we have two sides of the coin for matching people to work. So this is how our entire business and skills-based organization evolved, was an understanding that data around people are not sufficient. You have to have an equal amount of data around the work to be done. And so at EPAM, and I would recommend for everybody, instead of just going and doing a skills thing, like
Mhm.
how do you know what skills you even need? Start with the work. Like, what work are you doing? What work, like, what tasks does that person, like, is that role supposed to be doing? Then you figure out the skills, and then who has the skills, and then you close the gap. So task intelligence is something that is a massive, like, missing or has been missing from the conversation for reasons that I don't fully understand, but it cannot anymore. Because the other important thing, and this is where like L&D and HR can come in and like save the day for the business, is that when you understand the tasks to be done in the business and you have a great tool that helps you understand that, the best tools out there that define tasks also tell you which of those tasks are likely to be automated, which tasks can be done better by AI. Like, it actually gives you an understanding of where AI is likely to go in your business. That helps the business with their AI strategy and knowing what to build and how. But it's incredibly important for the people organization because it will tell us where are we going to need to reskill people into what kinds of roles? Where do we have gaps, right? Like this kind of task intelligence is, I don't know, we need to talk about it a lot more than we do, not just internally to ourselves, but to the business, because this is what they desperately need and do not have.
I agree. And I think what is so brilliant about this model too is it actually opens up talent across the org. You might not know that you have somebody in marketing that maybe has engineering or some sort of other skill, but you've had a job open over there forever. But because you've been simply looking, and even AI is kicking them out of the process because their specific set doesn't match with what it was that you proverbially put on paper that was required, but you've been looking at it as a title instead of a capability, you wouldn't know that person existed. Natasha put it in the chat, building and developing the talent pipeline of tomorrow is going to be skill based. And again, with the build versus buy, we have to start looking inside first, I think, across the org.
Yeah, and it's build by bot. I mean, there's like 15 other bots, but like the bot thing is really important, right? Because when there's new work to be done, like a new project for EPAM, for example, like we have a new project coming in, we're going to have the same tasks to complete the project. The difference is that AI is going to do some of those tasks and humans are going to do some of those tasks. So understanding for your job in a specific role or project, but also for your talent pipeline, which is going to include agents. Like it's like they're like employees that work with you. Like they're
oh
like
gosh,
little people.
The Matrix
robots.
is here.
No, it is. It's really, but it's so true. Like, but this is Workforce 2.0. Workforce 2.0 is agents and humans. It's dynamic. It's always changing, right? And it's very, very data driven. And this is where we have to go, and we have to wrap our heads around that and start understanding our role in making that happen for the business.
All right, I'm going to ask you a follow-up. It might be slightly controversial, but it's been on my mind this entire time as we have been talking about data and skills. And I might just swear even, how the hell do we know what skills are in our organization? Like, how do we do this? This is such a complicated, or feels complicated, and is being approached in kind of an overcomplicated manner for a lot of orgs. How do we know what skills are in our org? Like, if that data is so important, where do we start?
That is the biggest problem. So having done this for 30 years, I will tell you the biggest problem for the people organization in a skills-based organization is knowing what skills your people have, because skills are a latent construct, meaning that there is no way to measure them directly. You have to have lots of different inputs and data sources to help get a sense of what is the skill profile of a person. Right now, most people are doing self-report and manager report. I've said this 100 times. It's the right place to start. That's fine. It is not the place to end, because those are both suboptimal data sources, because people tend to be actually pretty bad at rating themselves, right, in general.
Yes, bias.
And so, but exactly. I mean, there's so many issues. Right. So we want to have a combination of inferred skills. So, looking at, your LinkedIn profile or projects that you've worked on, or even your title or whatever, like you can infer some skills where it's like, if you can imagine at EPAM, we have like a circle of all of our skills. They're all gray. The inferred ones are gray. They're there, but we're not certain about those. And then you have to have the validation. So this is where it gets expensive, because validation it takes time. You have to actually see it. You have to have someone who knows more than that person looking at it, giving them feedback. It's been a human process for a long time at EPAM. AI is coming in and helping support that significantly. But it is not enough to just infer skills. You must have them validated, because if you're going to make decisions on skills, you can't have crap data, right? And so there's some degree of validation has to occur. So ways do you validate, right? You can have a person who knows more than that person, their project manager, their resource manager, looking at work product, looking at their actual, like what they do every day, and giving them feedback on skills. You can have AI do that, which is starting to do now, not just in Teams or whatever. It can give you feedback on your soft skills, but it's actually companies are starting to put together learning and skill validation experiences where they're authentic, they seem like they're real. The employee has to perform, and then skills data are being assessed, like what skills do they have right in that moment, and at the same time they're getting coached to improve those skills. So this is probably the most exciting thing. one of the most exciting things in my world, my view, coming out in the next few years. It's starting now, but it will expand. The other thing, which is going to be it's going to come from IT, so don't worry about this, but the best source of data, the very, very, very best source of data on someone's skills is their actual work product in the real world. And so you're going to start seeing like data coming over from Teams or PowerPoint or like from the different systems of work. And that is going to flow into a skills profile too. So to me, the validation of skills is so incredibly important. It is not easy. It is very expensive to do right now. And it's going to get easier and cheaper as we start applying AI and connecting systems together going forward.
I will challenge you a tiny bit on the validation piece, because I think this is getting more and more accessible, right? Shameless self-promotion. This is what Skillable does. But I think as more organizations start looking at how do we actually measure behavior? How do we actually give people tasks to do that then can replicate an actual on-the-job scenario that we're going to have, that hopefully it becomes less and less expensive, more and more accessible inside of that. But I think, the thing that you said that just really resonates is that, one, there's multiple ways to do validation, and two, almost all of them are based in actual performance, whether it's feedback from someone watching you, whether it's you doing it in a scenario or a lab, whatever it might be. It is so much of that is rooted in capability and skill application. And I think that is something that is so overlooked currently, in my own opinion, in terms of our industry generally.
It is. And this is like a pet peeve of mine, is like so many learning people think about their job as delivering training. Yep. When actually, the job is to measure learning, and measuring learning happens by seeing that someone can do a task that they couldn't do before, which means you have to focus on measuring skills in that context, right? You're measuring something at the beginning and at the end and showing delta, but still you're measuring. And that is like, my previous world, like that is what is our job. And we tend to not realize that. And I think that's also going to have to change pretty soon too.
I love it. Okay. Now I'm really going to challenge us because we only have 2 minutes left. Okay, here we go. Last one. I'm actually going to transfer though to a personal. This has been incredibly informative, wildly useful. But as a brilliant, very highly skilled person, what's one skill you're working on right now? Tell us a little bit about an area you're growing in.
So it's not even, skills are so discrete. I'll tell you like an area that I'm learning. So since I came to EPAM 8 years ago, I felt like a big dummy because like in my previous world, I was an expert. I did learning. I came to a technology organization. I thought the clouds are the things in the sky. Like I had no freaking clue about any of this. And so I am constantly playing catch up on the technology and AI and data side of everything that EPAM does. And so one of the things that I'm really, really, really trying to understand and teaching myself and researching and asking millions of people is, what is the data infrastructure that is required to help companies become skills-based? So EPAM,
okay.
So a big problem that every company has is that their data are siloed in all these many different systems. So you can't get a comprehensive picture of any person because you just technically can't. One of the reasons that EPAM has done and succeeded as being a skills-based organization is that we don't have that problem. All of our data around people and work are in one place, one single place, which means that we can get every piece of information that we need about a person. This is difficult to do.
Good thing? Sorry to cut you off. Is that a good thing that it's in one system?
It is. Yes, and yes. We don't have 34 seconds, but the answer is yes.
Okay.
And it's very hard and expensive to do. And so what I'm trying to understand is, how can companies get there from a data perspective in a way that I can explain to other people, and how do we help people convince the business that this needs to happen as a precursor to learning, but also to AI.
Oh my gosh. Amazing. Guess what? We did it. We did it. Thank you from the bottom of my heart, from all of us at Skillable. I think this has just been incredible. I know many of you have put in the chat how useful and helpful this has been. I also know there were a bunch of questions sent in. We will take the onus on us, Sandra and I, to get back and to answer some of them and get them back in some of the post-event comms. We will send out the recording of this and all of the good things. But Sandra, thank you so much. I know that you're incredibly busy. This was so fun. I am so glad that we did it like this. Nice and quick, working on our skills as well. Thank you to all of you for making the time. We will see you at the next event.
Yes.
Have a good day,
Thanks,
everybody.
guys. Cheers.
See you.